You should, Larry, can you confirm you see my screen?
I can confirm.
Thank you. All right, guys. So, welcome to the future. This is the first part of my talk today, and it's about 10 things you should know about the future. So, I've already introduced myself, so I go right ahead to these 10 points. So, the first one is internet is everywhere, and this is, obvious to all of us right now. We are in the Internet of Things, but soon enough, internet is not just going to be inside of things, but it's going to be inside of ourselves. As you know, there are already companies like Neuralink of Elon Musk experimenting since a number of years on neural connections, and many universities have already done successful experiments in interfacing brains with machines. And this is going to be obviously a big thing. After the Internet of Things, we're gonna probably going to see the Internet of Human Things. The second point is, of course, on AI. You heard about AI a lot already, I'm sure. And what I want to tell you here about AI is really about the end of coding and how we are, ending the age of coding and entering the age of prompting. So, and obviously, it's kind of obvious to think that machines are better at coding themselves than we are at coding them. And but for all the people involved in programming and coding that have studied coding for years and are doing that as a job, this is a big disruption happening. And essentially, already engineers are the nature of engineering and coding is fundamentally changing thanks to AI. And I also like to call AI the future of doing only what we like, and in the sense that AI is taking away the burden of repetitive tasks, but also obviously raising all the questions that we know about the future of our jobs, what we'll do, how we make sense of our lives, and what how we will find purpose in our life if AI is going to do everything for us. The third point is on software defined organizations. And what I mean by that really starts in the age of the old ERPs, where we started, collecting data and working with data about every process, procedure, task, personal data of people. So all this data has been put inside of software platforms. And today, basically all the company's activities are essentially run with software. And in the future, this is going to be even more up to the point where data is going to be the real leadership. And, it's not absurd to say that companies will actually run by themselves and platforms will run companies instead of humans. The fourth point is on self-configuring devices. And here again, we come from computer with software programs. We are in the age of mobile computing and apps, but we're soon going to have devices that are going to be able to configure themselves without having the need to actually install any software or app on them. So there will be devices that essentially will take all they need from the internet connectivity and they will interface with us seamlessly. We just ask them, tell them what we need, when we need it. And in most cases, they will actually know before we do what we need when we need. The fifth point is on virtual humans. And this is essentially the evolution of what we know today as virtual assistants. There are various Cortana, Google Assistant, Alexa, and these virtual assistants will soon have a face and a human face that will become our preferred interface with machines. Of course, we will talk to them with voice, but the visual part will be increasingly important. And these virtual humans or virtual assistants will become our tutors, our coaches, our shopping assistants, and even our friends, so to say. Another important point is on boundaries, and this comes from the idea that today data is increasingly being distributed over the internet. The internet itself is becoming more and more distributed, and data can be shredded into little pieces, especially in the Web3 paradigms. Data is not only in one place, but a document, information can be spread out into little pieces that can be in a server here and a server there. So really, what's happening is that data is abstracting itself from territory, and it's really redefining boundaries and creating new territories and borders. The seventh point is on social disruption. And, we are in, of course, in a moment of a lot of tensions. There's the energy crisis, there's war in Europe and in other parts of the world. And there is a rising tension between the East and the West that somehow brings back the memories of the Cold War. But there is also a massive discrepancy about between the ultra rich and a massive amount of people who are increasingly becoming with empty pockets. And today with the internet, like everyone can see more or less what happens, and the way certain people live is really in the face of poor people. And we really feel there is an increasing need for more equality and less polarization of wealth and capital. And even though the legal system has erected stronghold and barriers to protect this capital and wealth, uh, this has been put at dangers from the tensions that are arising in society. The eighth point is on platform nations. Platform nations means, again, we have amassed an enormous amount of data inside of platforms, and today platforms are really part of our everyday life. We have social media, we have platforms to find a job, we have platforms to order food, we have platforms to book a hotel, travel, to do anything. So these platforms, and especially tech giants, are obviously becoming more and more powerful, influential, and they really hold the power of data within themselves. And it's not, another disruption that can well happen in the future is that these platforms could well represent the new nation states of the future. They will be able to give us a citizenship, not just a job, but the services that are normally handled by governments today, and institutions that are somehow failing to provide these services, and more than ever failing to modernize themselves to be able to provide these services as efficiently as those platforms can do. The ninth point is on humanoid robots, and I call them the new labor armies, of course. And in a way, I know this may seem, an absurd comparison, but they could be compared to the slave trade of the past, because the nations that employed slaves in the past, before and right after the Industrial Revolution, they essentially gain an enormous economic advantage over other nations. And who will control in the future the production of humanoid robots will kind of gain the same economic advantage. And being able to control that will really represent a big stronghold in power. And in this particular sense, of course, we know that China is very strong in robotics, and humanoid robotics are just about to come on the market. We see the first examples coming out, and obviously paired with artificial intelligence, they're really going to be the new robotic humans, and they're going to be able to perform any kind of task. The 10th and last point in this first part of my presentation is on climate change, but in particular on food revolutions. Because as we know, climate change has reshaped our planet, even before we appeared on the planet. But now what it is changing for us is really the geography of our food production. and how cultivations are shifting from countries to another. You have wine being produced in Northern Europe today in cold countries that wouldn't allow the production of wine or other crops before. And this is forcing for adaptation, and this is really changing the economies of states involved in food production. And this again will create a lot of tensions and then potential conflicts, and will demand for a realignment, let alone the synthetic production of food that is also an element coming into this. And this is the end of the first part of my contribution today. And as I mentioned in my last TED talk, it's really time to be future ready, to prepare ourselves for the future, because these are only some of the disruptions that the future is going to hold for us, and we really have to at least try and prepare for them, not to be found unprepared. Thank you. I'll finish this first part. Larry, I don't know if you want to open up the discussion at this point, or you want to leave it for the end.
So we're going to do it as a two-part kind of overview, but that was fascinating, and let's open it up for some questions. I guess one of the first questions I'll start with is how does an organization or even an individual be future ready? Is it through embracing technology? Because technology and change is scary, right? So how would you advise companies, people, institutions to embrace that change? Because change is coming, it seems like, at an increasing pace.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good point. Also, because I think communication around technology and media is creating a lot of misinformation. And if you've seen what happened with Meta and the Metaverse, I've been working in what they call today Metaverse since about 20 years. And when people like me saw this new wave and this new definition of Metaverse coming out, we're like, what the hell is going on? What's happening? We live in a period of media bubbles, of knowledge bubbles. And if we get our information on social media, everything is kind of polarized or driven in certain directions at certain times. And of course this happens in all media, and it's political, and there are a lot of sides to it. But what I can suggest personally is to try and attend to some events that are held by research institutions that study the future, that do future foresight. Some of them are non-profit. I mentioned the Institute for the Future in Palo Alto, where I'm a research affiliate, but not to advertise it. But I mean, there are many others, institutes and universities that host courses on future studies, and and look at the future at the high level. Like, if you saw in my presentation, I try not to. Okay, it's also a question of time, but it's not a question of understanding every element of a single technology and how it works, how it's gonna impact, but it's like keeping yourself at the macro level and really trying to understand like the macro influences of a certain technology, and not just like a temporary wave of the market.
So one follow-up question I have, and I'm going to be very selfish in asking it, but I've got two kids, one that's in college and one that's going to be graduating from high school. I worry about universities kind of being future-proof and teaching the right skill sets for students to be ready for whatever the future will bring. What would be your recommendation for someone like myself that has two kids that are going to be moving into the job market that could be very dramatically different tomorrow than it is today?
Sorry, what's the question again? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I've got two kids that are heading off to university, and I just, given your explanation of some of the major changes, whether it's Neuralink or robotics or artificial intelligence, the future, even 5 years from now, is going to look very different, and the job market's going to look very different than it is today. Yet people going into college are, they're picking career choices and picking schooling based on the past, right? They're not picking it
Yeah,
based on necessarily the future. So how
yeah.
could universities maybe do a better job of guiding students, or even parents guiding students to make the right choices, so that we've got a job market or a job force that is ready for these changes?
Yeah, well, okay, that's not easy to answer, I think, but there are always, there are two approaches here. There's the more, let's say, European traditional approach where, universities is more about teaching the theory of things and not, giving you hands-on experience on how to do things. Um, I would say that because machines are increasingly going to do things for us, I think it's more and more important to go back to humanities in a sense. And, of course, we need to understand where technology is going to go, but I don't think anyone has a clear idea of what the jobs of the future are going to be like, not even in a 5 years time frame. And um, like already today, again, it's really, and it has been in the past as well, it's really jobs that and corporations that are teaching us how to do a job more than the university experience itself. Even though there are, of course, very technically oriented universities that are, give you a very practical preparation. um, not an easy thing to answer. um, I would say a lot more humanities, a lot more philosophy, understanding better our, the human being, but our communities. Because, I think communities are going to be vital to give us a sense of belonging where when our jobs will be completely disrupted. Um, yeah, and this is, yeah, I think what I have to say about this.
That's a good answer to a very hard question. I'm gonna pause and see if there are other. I'm sure other people have some questions. So this is an opportunity for other people to ask.
I'll jump in here, Larry. I'm not even sure I know how to ask the question that might be swirling, because swirling in my head somewhere, but I think such thought-provoking points that you raised. One that really struck me is this concept of platform nations. I was recently just kind of thinking through this, mostly in terms of like digital assets and how we're thinking about them, but it extends really to really platforms beyond that. But when I'm hearing about legislation or conversations around digital assets and how you integrate those into the world, it's kind of in a 2D sort of format. Meaning, like if you were to take the world and flatten it out on a map and look at it, it sounds like conversations are around how can you get digital assets to integrate into this flat world. When really what I'm thinking about is, we're talking about building a three-dimensional world, right? Moving into a different layer of augmented reality or just a whole different virtual space. And so the concept of this platform nations really resonated with me, because you're talking about building, it's sort of like discovering, if we didn't discover all the land on Earth, it'd be sort of like we are discovering a new, land or what have you. And so I guess what I'm trying to understand is, looking at it through that lens, should we be thinking about, this is where I struggle with the question, should we be thinking differently about how we're looking to leverage or integrate some of these new emerging technologies into our existing world?
Yeah, definitely. And uh, there is some of that in the next part that talks about the metaverse. Um, like the platform nation of the future could be entire new dimensions created by emergent technologies. So when you talk about, virtual reality, when you talk about entire new virtual worlds, of course, we're looking at, colonizing new planets, and getting our resources, raw materials from outer space. But the concept itself of a metaverse implies the creation of alternative dimensions that technology will definitely be able to enable, especially when we will be brain connected to these virtual worlds. So yeah, and absolutely, like today we can think of a future platform nation coming from a Google, a Microsoft, or one of those tech giants. But maybe it's going to be an entire new virtual dimension where some people may prefer to live. And it sounds a bit like Black Mirror, but
And I guess I was always kind of thinking of it more like platform of economies. Economies driven in a different outside of your traditional, I guess, your fiat economies, and that's kind of where my head's been at. So I don't know. It's great thought though. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mattia, we have one other question, then we can let you move on to the rest of your presentation. But Lou Morgan asked, what roles do you see humans playing into the new AI world?
Big question. I don't think. Again, I don't think a lot of people really know what the new roles are going to be. I think there is going to be like different stages, and I can probably tell you that the next stage is going to be what I called, the age of doing what I really like doing and leaving all the boring, repetitive stuff to the machines or to AI. And then, already today, if we can use a number of AI tools to increase our productivity dramatically. I do, my company does, and ever since we have generative AI, I probably increased my productivity by 10 or 20 times. I use it to create any type of document. I use it to double check information. My engineers use it to debug code, to write code even. So it's again, it's one of those big questions: what will we do? And it also connects very well to Larry's question on how is the future of education going to be, and this let's say discrepancy there is in between older education and institutions and the new that is coming very fast, and how fast can we adapt to that. And I'm not saying I'm a positive thinker on the future. I'm not saying technology is going to wipe us out. We already went through the atomic bomb, so that was probably what people say less dangerous than AI is, maybe. I don't think I don't believe AI is going to wipe us out, but what I do believe is that it's going to definitely change a lot of things. And there are things that there are other factors that are impacting, such as the growth on population, and a number of other factors like social inequalities, like I mentioned. But yeah, I mean, hard to say and hard to answer your question in full.
I appreciate that. So let's go on to the rest of your presentation. If anyone has a question we didn't get answered, feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll get it answered at the end, and we'll have some additional time for questions at the end. But with that, I want to turn it back over to you for the second part of your talk.
Thank you, Larry. All right, here we go. And here is about the, oops, not the last one, sorry. So typical metaverse, starting from the end. Okay, so of course this is opening up with a surrealist AI generated art painting. the metaverse is by definition surreal. And I'm going to start by obviously trying to answer the first, big burning question: what the hell is the metaverse? And by definition, if you look back in Latin and Greek, the metaverse is really everything beyond the universe, and that's pretty big. Now, today, what we're going to try and answer is not what is the metaverse in a philosophical sense, but what is the metaverse in technology, and what do we mean by metaverse in technology. First of all, the metaverse does not exist yet. It's not there. They tell you it's coming, but it's not there. The metaverse is a concept describing the future of the internet that is not yet arrived. There is only one metaverse. This is important, and the metaverse has many different worlds: 3D worlds, immersive worlds. Our kids already use some of these emerging words like Roblox, Fortnite, Minecraft, other 3D virtual worlds. They're all worlds, and worlds in the metaverse are just like websites and web portals in today's and the older internet. So only one metaverse, no metaverses. The foundational technologies of the metaverse and that are going to make up the metaverse exist today in emerging form. We have immersive technologies, AR, VR, 3D in general. We have AI, we have blockchain, we have the physical internet elements like Internet of Things, smart objects, robotics, and they're all there. But for some of them, we are starting now to understand how to really generate value out of them, especially for companies. Let me take you through some of the foundations behind the metaverse. First, connectivity, of course, and this is clear. Connectivity has to be fast, cheap, and reliable. Of course, 5G is an answer. Anything that is the future of the internet and the metaverse is extremely heavy and uses a lot of bandwidth, processing power, video memory, GPU, CPU. So the metaverse really needs a lot of processing power. And that's one of the reasons why we are waiting such a long time for this metaverse to arrive, because the promise is there and technology is rapidly arriving where, at the point where it can render realistic 3D immersive experience, but it's not that yet there. There is the famous puppet-looking avatar of Mark Zuckerberg looking really ugly. There is the uncanny valley of puppet avatars, and just because it really takes an enormous amount of processing power and bandwidth to have the current version of the internet we have in 2D entirely in 3D. Ubiquity is another element of the metaverse, in the sense that, again, internet is everywhere today and in everything, but it's the Internet of Things is undergoing a profound evolution and becoming what I'll later better explain, what I'll define as the Internet of Actions, but I'll get to that a bit later. 3D is obviously a fundamental part of the metaverse. The internet is becoming not only immersive with 3D, but is also becoming an ambient internet all around us. Avatars, you all know about avatars already. I won't spend much time on this. Avatars are essentially personas representing ourselves. We will lose our user IDs. We will have our avatars looking like us, looking differently. We can be men, women, anything we want. It's obviously an important part of our future identity in the metaverse. Now we get to the, I think, more interesting points about the metaverse and the concept, for example, of virtual scarcity. And by virtual scarcity, I mean really the possibility to have on the internet unique content, certified unique content. And why am I saying that? And obviously, unique content equals value. Why am I saying that? Because this is a picture of the old internet, so to say, and citing Kevin Kelly, who is a famous futurologist. The old internet is a big photocopying machine where every file can be copied, and every copy of the original file is exactly the same as the original. But now we have NFTs, and we have a new way of certifying the uniqueness of content over the internet. So the image can be copied, but the inner property of content of a file can be made unique and can be certified thanks to blockchain technology, non-fungible token, and smart contracts. Virtual land is another important element of the metaverse. It can be compared to what we define today as hosting, as web space, 2D web pages, and web space is going to become virtual land, is already virtual land in virtual worlds and in 3D platforms. And this is really a new market. You've seen it in the crypto boom. It's a new market, and it's the new virtual real estate market of the future. And this is also connected to virtual scarcity and the concept of unique content, because server space is essentially the same anywhere. It can be cheaper, it can be more expensive, but it does not really have a geography and a positioning on a map. Virtual land does. A virtual world essentially has a map, and obviously, where you have your spots of virtual land, whether it's in a valuable neighborhood or surroundings and a valuable region, who you are next to determines the value of your space. And in that sense, is just like real estate. Interoperability has always been, of course, a very important element of software and the internet in particular. And it's even more important in the metaverse today. Like it has been for software and platforms in the past, today we have single 3D worlds that do not communicate with each other. So you cannot have your own avatar in one world and just jump to another. And so therefore interoperability is going to be vital, because what we want in a true metaverse is that to be able to go from one world to the other seamlessly, maintaining your identity. AI, again, I already mentioned this. I'll skip through this one. And blockchain. Blockchain here, what I think are the most important elements of blockchain today, and I'm not an expert of fintech, but is related to smart contracts and the possibility of having a digital contract that essentially automates and executes the relationship in between two individuals without the need of a central institution granting or certifying this contract. Obviously, blockchain has a lot of problems still. One of the main problems of blockchain is scalability, and there are ways to do smart contracts and other things you do today with blockchain without a blockchain. But obviously, blockchain is one of the ways to have smart contracts. And what I think is the future of blockchains, and this comes also from some conversations I had with some institutions like the Post, for example, and the Universal Postal Union, which is in Switzerland, in Bern, and essentially regulates all the postal ecosystem in the UN nations, is like the future of blockchain for me is related to governments, and not just to private platforms of individuals releasing their blockchains with their own rules. I think there is a lot of sense in creating institutional, so to say, blockchains that will serve central institutions like, for example, the Universal Postal Union to build a blockchain that could serve all the posts around the world and could be a certifying technology and enabling technology for transactions in that domain. And so you could have, a universal blockchain for banks, a universal blockchain for posts and for identity, and so on and so forth. Digital currency and not crypto. I'll explain why in the next slides, but obviously digital currency and the dematerialization of currency itself makes a lot of sense. Although I still, feel and think that behind a true currency, there has to be a nation and sometimes even an army. And you may have noticed I did not talk about decentralized web and crypto. For me, these are not part of the metaverse, and I tell you why. First of all, decentralized is a conceptual mistake. The internet is decentralized already. Web3 is distributed. Paul Byron here in a picture of 1964. Paul Byron was the project manager of ARPANET, worked for DARPA in the creation of the first version of the internet. He was an engineer, a researcher, a brilliant man, and also a co-founder of the Institute for the Future in Palo Alto. And back then, in the 60s, he already theorized how information systems would go essentially through these three main stages. And obviously, starting from centralized media, TV, telephones, radios, defined as the old media today, to this decentralized infrastructure, and decentralized infrastructure and information system generated the internet as we know it today. The internet is already decentralized by definition because it does not have a centralized emitter and receivers, but it has various nodes and multiple nodes and receivers, and they share data and information. The internet is already decentralized, has always been decentralized. What the internet of tomorrow is going to be, and what the internet is already becoming with the Web3 wave and blockchain and so on, is distributed. So that's when we talk about decentralized technologies, we should really say distributed technologies. Web3 is distributed, it's not decentralized. And crypto, of course, the meaning of the word by itself comes from cryptic, mysterious, or obscure. Intriguing, fascinated, definitely. I've definitely dived into it very much in recent years. Safe, maybe not. Just because it's on the contrary to the theory of decentralization and distribution, it's highly polarized in the hand of the few, is highly maneuverable. You have seen what happened with decentralized exchanges and FTX and so on. It's definitely still a world that's very controlled, maneuvered, and polarized. Now, let me talk to you about what we can define the age of the ambient internet. So this internet that is more and more 3D, it's immersive, but it's ambient in the sense that it's really becoming something that is around us all over. And here the concept is media is always, used to be a part of our environment. We had media on a screen, on devices, it was part of the environment. The internet of the future, the metaverse, is a place where media is the environment. We will experience for the first time a full immersion inside of media, and media will become our environment. We will be part of media. Media will not be part of the space we live in. That's why we call it the ambient internet. And the internet in this is obviously redesigning itself as it evolves, mirroring our world, but also reconfiguring the reality we live in. And we know what the IoT is, and the IoT was started by connecting things to the internet, essentially. Then these connected things that were essentially dumb connected things became more and more smart because processing power, microchips, memory, and electronic components became smaller and cheaper. And so we were able to make things smarter and smarter. And today we live in the age of intelligent things. We have Teslas, we have smart objects, we have intelligent things that are starting they're not anymore just connected to the internet and exchanging data, but they are elaborating data by themselves. And they're actually starting to act by themselves. That's why we defined at the Institute for the Future, in particular, we defined the future of the Internet of Things as IOA, or the Internet of Actions, because it's the Internet of not just connected things, but smart interacting things that will autonomously interact with each other, with ourselves, and with the world. And the Internet of Actions, heading towards the conclusion of this part, carries with itself 4 main new capacities that is very important to understand. The capacity to alter human perception, to encode human activity, to manipulate matter, and to animate objects and environments. And here is how it works. First, altering human perception. We know about fake news and all of that. You probably remember this famous video about Obama, and that was a fake, that was faked with AI and artificial video generation, so to say. But the ability to alter human perception in the future and to manipulate the reality we will see is going to be tremendous. And this is something that we really have to start educating ourselves about, because today, is what we see is really the reality. Tomorrow, what we will see will not necessarily be the reality. The second point is encoding human activity. And there again, we know there is a lot of our activities that are being encoded by machines, where we go, who we talk to, what we do, lots of data about us. And I'm pulling out this picture, and sometimes obviously it makes me laugh, but this is a smart toilet that is essentially able to encode our human biology day by day. And not just that, but this is bringing the capability of creating entire mappings of our, not just territories, nations, transport, and so on, but of our biology. So we are able to gather through smart devices and increasingly more biological smart devices, so to say, more and more data about how we work, how our bodies work, how our minds work even. Manipulate matter is about the capacity of manipulating raw materials and the capacity of producing adaptive materials that are going to be used to create a new type of object, that will be more and more resembling to an organism rather than an artifact. And here is an abstract of from Autodesk on a research project on the future of design and the future of CAD, which is embedding a molecular modeler to allow designers of the future to create objects that are modeled not just in their materials and exterior shapes, color, shape, but from they're inside their molecules, and model and how the molecules interact and create new metabolic pathways to be able to truly generate not just objects but organisms. And finally, animating objects and environments, and this is fair enough and easy to see already today. This is an extreme representation of an augmented reality supermarket where you have elements in 3D that are becoming part of, again, the environment, and where technology is really becoming the environment around us. And there you have the virtual assistant, you have a mascot, you have product recommendations, you have an augmented vision of everything that is around you. And of course, this is an outdoor representation, by the way. This is taken from some video work done by Keiichi Matsuda, who is a video artist who made these beautiful videos you can see on YouTube on visualizations of the future and how the future can be. In short, and to summarize and conclude on this metaverse part and the evolution of the internet, we started the internet with BBSs, some of you may remember. Then we went to a web of information with websites, desktop computing, software programs, and that was the Web 1. The Web 2 became a web of interactions, social media, apps, mobile computing, social networks, devices with apps. And where we head into the so-called metaverse or ambient and immersive internet is a web of immersion, where our interfaces will be our AI virtual assistants, not anymore software and applications, just a face to talk to and to get the machine to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, even before you know it. And ubiquitous computing everywhere. The internet is everywhere and in everything, as I was saying before. And these configurable devices, not just mobile devices with software, but configuring devices that will work by themselves just by prompting them. They will configure themselves, adapt themselves to give you the services you need. And that's going to be the Web 3. Thank you very much. This is it for today.
Mattia, I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions.
Thank you.
I guess my question, that was fascinating. My head is swirling. It's probably hurting, but
are you too kind?
I mean, I'm trying to think about the challenges for humans when we can be fed. And we're already seeing this with the internet, where you can be fed what you want to hear from a self-reinforcing beliefs, but like when you can ultimately be fed whatever makes you feel good, without much effort, who chooses to live in a physical real world versus who chooses to live in a virtual world where everything is perfect. And let's say I live in a distressed country where there's war and not much jobs, and I live in a crappy apartment, but virtually I could live somewhere else. Is that good for humanity? Is it bad for humanity? I'm personally one that thinks that we are hardened by suffering and pain, and that those are good things in life. Kind of the yin and yang. But like, what does this mean for humanity?
Well, brings back to the vision of the Matrix. So,
yeah, it does.
The forever sleeping humans use as batteries, and I mean, that's actually going to be a possible choice. And again, when life becomes too hard to handle, imagine some dramatic conditions you may find yourself in, illnesses, and more. Obviously, this could be an option. And if we're able to make a virtual world, a synthetic world that is as real as reality by connecting our brains directly to them, then the problem is like it was in the Matrix, is just how to keep our bodies alive, or even if we need to keep our bodies alive, or just our minds, like Doctor Who or something.
So you were talking about uplinking neural links. I mean, I could conceive of a time where your being, your thoughts are uploaded, and you can leave that physical body and exist in a purely electronic sense. Strange, incredible world I think we will be headed in. I'll pause and see if there are other people have questions, because I find this fascinating. I could talk to you for hours, but I really appreciate your insight on this.
Thank you.
Hey, Larry, this is Dean. Just a quick question. Well, question and a comment. First, your comment about losing your thoughts and uploading them. There's actually a TV series called Upload that they do that. It was kind of fascinating. It was only on for a season or two, I think, on Amazon. It might have been on Amazon or something, but it was curious. My question, though, was when you look at the internet and how it gave us more data than we ever had, but resulted in us having to remember a lot less ourselves. And then AI is going to give us the ability to have machines think for us. And following that similar path, we'll be thinking less for ourselves. The ambient immersive internet is going to give us the ability to experience more than ever before, but we'll be experiencing less ourselves. So if you put this whole combination together of thinking less, experiencing less, remembering less, it could put us in a bad path, like you were saying with the Matrix and all that stuff. What do we have to do as humans to stay relevant and remain on top of the food chain in this future world?
Yeah. Again, do we have an answer for that? But good point. I love the way you put it. It's who are we? Who will we be? And again, this can connect to a lot of other thoughts about the origin of the human being. It connects with religion. It connects with extraterrestrial, more advanced societies that have may have passed here in the past. I don't know. No, I love the way you put it, but it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have an answer myself. I just thought it was fascinating the way it was all laying out.
Yeah.
Well, other questions for our guest? And I do have, I think, everyone on mute. So if anyone wants to ask a question, just make sure you take yourself off mute.
There's some, I'm reading up in the chat if there are more.
Yeah, let's see what.
Roles of human. How can the metaverse change our life? Well, the first thing is, the way we'll interact with the main infrastructure that handles our life today, which is the internet. Like the first change in our life will really be the way we interact with machines, which will be more natural, and in that sense it will be more dangerous, connecting to what Dean was saying. We had, if you remember, when I remember at high school we had a typing course. We had old typewriters and we had to learn typing, and it was a private school, and it was a boarding school in Switzerland, and we were asking ourselves, why the hell do we have to learn typings? We will have a secretary when we'll have a job. And we couldn't be more wrong. So when we actually got a job, secretaries were about to go, and here he goes. The new secretary was a keyboard, And if you hadn't learned how to type, obviously it was a problem. And the fact that we did a typing course was a big advantage. And, we could type faster from the beginning. And this is what I wanted to say with this is that in the beginning of computers, we had to learn how to use an interface that we were not familiar with. They had, buttons, functions, menus, and of course there is, the whole user experience thing. But the future of the internet is much easier to use because the interface will be either an avatar of ourselves or will be our gestures, our voice. We will not need to go through a 2D complex button-made, menu-made interface that we have to learn where things are, but we will use our native natural interface, which is our body, or a reflection of our body, which is the avatar, which is with hands, with a head, with a mouth, with voice. So with the same type of senses that we are used to using with our body in everyday life.
Yeah, thank you for that. I feel like you've given us a view into the future. I feel a little like I'm seeing Black Mirror episodes or something. But where can people reach out to you? I mean, we've got a lot of executives on the call that might have strategic planning sessions coming up, board presentations, retreats. I presume you still do. I'm going to ask, do you do speaking for those sorts of events? And if so, where can people reach out to you?
Thank you. I pasted my email in the chat if anyone wants to reach out. It's one@qbittech.com. And please feel free to reach out anytime. I'll be happy to support you.